Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Recording from you live on Tuesday, October 8th, 2019. Here from Los Altos, Grace. Welcome to episode 2 from Bob's office.
The next voice you hear belongs to an incredible man who Jake and I have known for almost 2 years. He works here at the church as the what I like to call young families pastor. He's passionate about his family, his faith, and every person he encounters, and his alter ego is the most beloved character at camp. He is the gracious individual who allows us to record from Bob's office, from his office, the one and only Bob Mabry. Thanks for joining us, Bob.
Well, hola and aloha from my office.
Yes.
Yes.
So, we're just going to tell a couple stories really quick. I had the opportunity to attend 2 more weddings this weekend after attending 2 the previous weekend. The first one was for my friend Tim, and it was up in L.A., right next to Dodger Stadium. There's like a river gardens there. And it was a beautiful setting, and I knew exactly 2 other people there, the person I drove with and one of the groomsmen. And the table we sat at, these are the best parts of like what I'm going to share about the wedding. The table we sat at was me, my friend Nick, the other guy I knew, whose name is also Nick, Rachel, another guy named Nick, a girl named Nicole, and a girl named Nikki. That was the entirety of our, it wasn't the entirety, there were 3 or 4 more people to my left.
That's a lot,
it was
lot
incredible.
of Nicks.
It was pretty confusing because at one point, one of the guys had a flask and people would ask him, they'd go, Nick, can I get a little more of that? And the other 2 Nicks would all respond like, what? But they wouldn't have anything because they weren't involved in that situation.
They were the wrong Nick.
Yeah, they were the wrong Nick.
They had to do that on purpose.
I'm assuming Tim at some point when they go over and they're like talking to the tables and stuff, he came over and he jokingly said that it was on purpose, but I'm pretty sure it was on purpose to put all of those people at the same table. But it was really entertaining. But then the second wedding was for my friends Dan and Kelsey, who I know from playing Ultimate with. And the wedding was up at a polo field complex in Santa Barbara. So it's just wide open expanses of grass, and it's beautiful. Like, it's not like super picturesque, but it's just a cool open area. And it was one of the best weddings I've ever been to because it really genuinely felt like a bunch of friends hanging out, and 2 of our friends happened to be celebrating this awesome thing, and we're like celebrating it with them. It wasn't like a prim and proper, like, people are fun, we all have to be quiet and just take in the ceremony that's happening and like react properly. Like, the guy, the officiant who was doing the wedding, gets up there and the first thing he says is, I've never done this before, so this is going to be a party. And just the whole time it wasn't unscripted, it was scripted-ish. But just the way he was telling the story of Dan and Kelsey and how Dan and Kelsey were interacting, and Dan was crying the whole time, and Kelsey was crying, and the vows were just like beautiful conversations with each other. Like, it wasn't this like, it was all awesome. And then even the toasts were just great. They were perfect. They were each relatively short, told really good, funny stories, and everyone just had a great time, and the food was phenomenal. It was a huge grill, and they cooked chicken and tri-tip, and there was all this other stuff. It was great. It was a fantastic wedding. So
Making me hungry right now.
I know.
I forgot to eat breakfast.
Luckily, I had 2 bowls of frosted mini wheats a couple hours ago, so that's holding me over pretty good. So yeah, I had a great time at the weddings and other stuff. What did you guys do this weekend?
Excellent.
Any highlights?
Well, Saturday we had a big event. We had beach day for church and school. And so we had tons of kids show up, and my wife Tara and I and Scott Sousa and Scott Reese all were out there pushing kids into waves, and had a lot. I lost count after about 10, but a lot of kids just super stoked to get out there, and nobody got stung by a stingray. That was really good.
That is a win.
Yes.
That is a win.
And today is my son's birthday. Shout out to Zach. Happy birthday.
Hey.
And so for his birthday, we bought him a wetsuit and a new surfboard. And we were in TK's Frog House in Newport Beach. And while we were in there, TK told us he's shutting the lights off, and all his workers hid behind the counter, and they locked the door because a sales rep was coming. And so then you hear a knock on the door, and it was pretty funny. And so the sales rep left and then came back, and they turned the lights back on and just pretended like nothing happened. So that was
Brilliant.
really fun.
I always enjoy things like that. Spur of the moment fun.
That's the best way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You have any highlights
This
in the
weekend
chat?
was pretty bad. I wrote a 4-page, or it ended up being 5. Either way, I wrote a paper that it was not fun to write, but I did it, and I turned it in. So here we go.
Hey, being a good student. Good job.
And then it was a great week. Not great week. It was a great weekend for most sports, and it was very entertaining because Sunday was our first sports equinox, which is the 4
It
major...
doesn't count.
It counts. The
It
4
doesn't
major
count.
sports playing in one day. Basketball, baseball, hockey, and football all in one day.
Here's why that doesn't count. Preseason doesn't count.
It might
That's
be the
not
only
a-
time we ever have.
Preseason basketball doesn't count. The basketball season's going to start at end of October, and we will have it. We will have a real all 4 playing meaningful games on the same day later in the month. It has not happened yet.
Cannot confirm.
That's that. All right, so the first great game over the weekend. Well, it wasn't the first game, but it's the
It also
first one we're
sounded
going
like
to
you
talk
said
about.
the first grade game.
No. Yeah, the first grade game. I wouldn't be able to watch first graders play sports. That's a little too random, and everyone just attack the same thing at the same moment, and
Yes.
that's that hurts my head to watch that.
Yeah.
No, the first game we're going to talk about is near and dear to Jake's heart, the Cowboys and the Packers game, which going in seemed like a pretty even matchup.
Who won that game?
The Green Bay Packers did.
Oh,
You said that much more subdued than I think both of us were expecting.
I don't want to yell into the listeners' ears. But yes, the Green Bay Packers have once again had a marvelous victory.
Jake's wearing a cheese head on his hat.
There's
Right
a
now.
video going, and we can totally see that I am not actually
Oh.
wearing one.
In his heart, he is.
I have one at home in my closet. I don't wear it because it's like 15 pounds. Not pure cheese, which I thought it might have been, but
Oh.
it was not. So we won a great game where we started off very strong and dominant, and then we kind of went, you know what, let's not be strong and dominant for a bit. And then we came back and was like, hey, let's do it again, and we won the game.
Yeah, they came out to a pretty big lead early, and then the Cowboys started putting some stuff together and started to make a go of it, and then Dak Prescott fumbled.
You know,
And
Dak
that
Prescott,
or was it
once
an
again,
interception?
either
remember.
way,
It
Dak
was a
Prescott
turnover.
messed up, which I'm not surprised.
Ouch.
One big takeaway that I got from it was that the refs need to be a little more chill about roughing the passer, because our guy literally touched a guy's helmet, and the entire internet exploded because everyone was like, no, that's just a dumb call.
That's
This
because
guy,
you're not allowed to hit a quarterback in the head.
you know,
They
a
hit
lot
him
of
in the head.
quarterbacks get hit
That's
in the
just-
head, and you don't ruin a game for it.
It wasn't ruined.
They scored a touchdown on that drive,
That
which they shouldn't have had.
okay.
So
If you hit a quarterback in the head, it's penalty. That's just clear rules.
I would love to be, every time I get tapped in the head by some foreign object, I would love to get a bonus.
Foreign object. It was a hand that was trying to hit him. Like
Mm.
that's
You know,
how that works. It wasn't just some random foreign object.
there's a lot of other calls that could have been called instead of that. But it was.
If you would hear some Cowboys fans tell it, the Packers were getting a lot
Well,
of calls to go their way, and I didn't fully disagree while they were happening.
you know, who won the game, and hopefully we'll see them in the playoffs.
And what does that make Aaron Rodgers' record in AT&T Stadium?
I believe it is 3-0 for normal season, but I saw another stat where it said 5-0, which I'm not sure if that one was correct.
Yeah, he's
Or-
5-0 overall.
So does the 5-0, does that include the 2 playoff wins there?
Yeah.
Okay, so 3-0 regular season and 2 wins, one in the was it the no, it was not the championship game.
I don't know.
It was a Super Bowl that they won in AT&T Stadium though.
Makes sense. So according to the NFL.com power rankings, The Packers are now 5th overall.
I was
That's
going to
pretty
talk
good.
about the top 10, but you kind of skipped ahead of me.
Oh, sorry. Were you going to do something before
I was
we got
going
there?
to read off the top 10, and then you're just like, yeah, let's just
Oh.
talk about it now. So the top 10 right now is New England, the New England Patriots, who are a astonishingly 5-0 team. The only undefeated. Nope, they're not the only undefeated team.
Nope.
I'll get there. The undefeated New England Patriots. Number 2, the New Orleans Saints. Number 3, the Kansas City Chiefs. Wow. Number 4, San Francisco 49ers. And number 5, the Green Bay Packers. Number 6, the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 7, the Seattle Seahawks. Number 8, the Dallas Cowboys. Number 9, the Los Angeles Rams. And number 10, the Buffalo Bills.
So I was scrolling along as you read that, and as it got to the Rams, in my head, I still said St. Louis in my head.
Did I?
Yikes. No, you said Los Angeles.
Okay, good.
You saying Los Angeles made me go, oh, wow. I still need to fix what I think in my head. That sound you heard after the Chiefs were mentioned was Bob cheering. Wow. Because Bob is a Chiefs fan. Can you tell us why that is?
Well, I've been a long-time Chiefs fan.
Yeah.
It goes way back to when I was going to Azusa Pacific University and Christian Okoye was playing for APU. And I saw him speak at a chapel, and the dude is as big as a door.
A very large door.
And so he was a superstar there, obviously, but then when he got picked up by the Chiefs, I started following the Chiefs, and then the Chiefs picked up Joe Montana, and they were good for about a season. And it's been painful ever since until the past couple of years. Yeah. It's been super fun.
And you do own a pretty sweet piece of memorabilia.
Yes, I do. I have a signed Chiefs cap from Alex Smith. It says, to Bob, all the best, Alex Smith.
Wow.
That's
Look at him now with
fantastic.
2 broken legs.
Yeah.
Okay, not 2. 1, but...
Jake just out to ruin everyone's day.
And I had a hard time letting go of Alex Smith, but it's turned out really okay.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, this new guy, he's pretty good.
He's pretty
He's
He
good.
slings the ball pretty good.
If you hear him talk, though, he does sound like Kermit the Frog.
He sounds like a cartoon character.
I've
and
been
it's
told
really, really funny.
I sound like Kermit the Frog, so maybe that's.
I'm trying to envision.
I love him even more.
So, about the Power Rankings... Power
The
rankings.
Power Rangers?
I wish this was about the Power Rangers. What team stands out to you the most?
Being on the rankings,
Yes.
I feel like you want me to say the Bills.
Because it should be the Bills.
I mean, 10 is the end of the top third, but for the Buffalo Bills,
It's still
who've
better than
historically been
26
really, really bad.
12 to 22 teams.
True. Yeah, it's what they're doing this year is really impressive. And so they're what now? 4-1?
4-1, yes.
So 4-1, and their only losses to the Patriots, and it was a close game to the Patriots. I'm very impressed by them.
Mm-hmm.
I am secretly rooting for them.
Is there any teams that you think should have been a top 10 team but aren't?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I'm not. The Bears' offense is so bad, even though their defense is so good, that I'm not willing to put them up there. I'm not surprised that the Rams have dropped to 9th because the fact that we're even that high still is crazy because we have not played. We've played one kind of good game. Even our first 3 wins were all just not good wins. Mm-hmm. And then we gave up 56 points to Jameis Winston, which is horrible. And then we we should have beat Seattle. Greg Zuerlein, I love you, Greg Zuerlein. You missed one kick, it's okay. We'll beat them when they come back down to LA and it'll be fine. But yeah, I'm okay with it. I mean, Eagles, sure. 49ers are just undefeated, so you got to keep them up there. But I don't know.
They're
I didn't
also
watch the
playing
game last
pretty
night,
well.
so I'm not super impressed.
They don't look bad. They don't look good.
And
I mean, wait, they do look good. I didn't mean that. But they don't look bad.
And it's really hard for me to put the Saints this high still with Bridgewater. Like
They
Teddy
still are
Two
winning.
Gloves. I know they're 4-1.
They're still
They've been
winning
winning
games
with
that
them.
they shouldn't be winning.
He
and they're
won in Seattle, which is super impressive.
extremely, and also against Dallas.
Yeah.
But
so I don't know.
Also, one thing is Drew Brees is throwing the ball again, so his return could happen sooner than we expected, which would be stellar for them, and it would definitely. Right now, they're in a position where they can make the playoffs, and we did not expect that coming in with Teddy Bridgewater coming as their quarterback, pretty much.
Not at all. So Yeah, it was pretty impressive. So the Chiefs are up there too. They're really good. Their only loss this year to the Colts happened Sunday night, which was a really impressive game by the Colts. And
Holding them to what, 13 points?
it was something like that, 19-13.
I thought it was 17 to 13.
Should probably have this information at the ready if we're gonna, do this kind of thing.
19 to 13.
I nailed it. Go me.
I thought it was 17, but then I realized you can get 17. Never mind.
You can get anything but one. Yeah, we'll move on.
How do you get?
It's hard to get the other things, but you can.
Yeah.
You can get two safeties to get to 4. You get a safety and field goal to get to 5.
I was like, I don't know how you get to 4, but
some random combination of. I don't know that any team has ever had the score of 4 at any given moment. I'm sure it's had to have happened. We'll get our research department on it. So back to the Chiefs-Colts game. So Jake and I are big fans of Pat McAfee. He's a very entertaining individual in addition to being one of the best punters of all time. And he has phenomenal takes about things. And so he is kind of a homer when it comes to the Colts, and that's fine. But after watching the game... A bit biased. After watching the game Sunday night, he was on Get Up on ESPN yesterday morning and had the following to say.
Nobody's talking about the Colts until, bang, they make this big win over the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. And I honestly believe when I say this, I'm going to say it with a straight face. This camera, the Indianapolis Colts can win the Super Bowl this year. I am saying it. Lock it in.
So that's a pretty heavy take.
For a not top 10 team. Where are they positioned on?
They are 14th? Yeah, 14th.
That's not a terrible place for them, though.
It's not. I mean, they're 3-2. They have the most impressive win of the year, I think, taking out Kansas City. Justin Houston looked like a beast beating up on his old team.
I would say, I didn't even realize that he went there.
That was news to me. But Super Bowl seems a little.
Yeah.
They would have to beat Kansas City again, probably in Kansas City, and they would have to beat the Patriots in New England, probably. That's a lot to get through, and that's not even counting the Texans and Buffalo, who are also ranked above them. It's a big step, and I'm not yet very super impressed with Jacoby Brissett. He's talented, but yeah, I'm not.
Can we make Super Bowl predictions right now?
We definitely have the ability to.
Are you comfortable doing that right now?
You can start.
Patriots versus the Saints.
Oh, he didn't go with the Packers.
I believe we'll lose in the NFC Championship game.
Oh.
Because Drew Brees will throw probably 500 yards on us. And we don't have someone to finish, or we don't have someone really that would be able to keep up with Kamara.
I'm going to go Kansas City.
Yay.
I'm going to ride that train. And I want to pick New Orleans just because they've had some rough go of it in the playoffs the last couple seasons with how they've lost. But for fun, 49ers.
That would be very interesting.
Yeah, Chiefs 49ers.
Okay.
Both of Montana's teams facing against each other in the Super Bowl.
The spirit of Joe.
Yeah, that'd be. He's not dead. Bob's already counting Joe Montana's days down. Yikes.
Well, that's wise.
Do you have a Super Bowl?
Chiefs and somebody.
Well,
for it. So, highlighting a couple other games. The Browns-Niners last night. I didn't watch a minute of it because I was coaching and, things happen.
I sadly watched most of it because I tried renting a movie halfway through, but the card got declined. So I couldn't watch a movie. So I still have not seen Spider-Man. But from what I saw...
I saw it 4 times. You want me to give you a detailed recap?
No, I want to watch it.
Yeah, that makes
from what I saw from this game is, sadly, the Browns aren't living up to what we thought they could be. Either that or the fact that Freddie Kitchens, I believe that's his name, can't actually coach. Because they have so many big players and key names that could explode any minute, but they're just not. They have a great running back with Chubb, and they have a extremely good receiver core with
2 of the top 6 in my opinion.
Yeah, Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, and Callaway is very good, who came back from suspension last night and dropped an open touchdown because he he doesn't have experience right now, so that's part of the issue. And just Baker Mayfield isn't a bad quarterback. He isn't playing, and no one is showing up to help him necessarily right now. At one point in the game, he was 0-4, and Odell Beckham was 1-for-1 on passing.
So what's a great stat? So there's a stat called quarterback rating, which is a very confusing stat, but it takes into account completion percentage, yards per attempt, attempts per touchdown, and interceptions. Or not attempts. Yeah, attempts per touchdown. And so a perfect quarterback rating is 158.3. If you throw 30 passes and they're just all incomplete, you just throw 30 passes straight into the ground and they're all incomplete, that's a 39 quarterback rating, somewhere around there. It's in the 30s. At one point during last night's game, Baker Mayfield had a quarterback rating of 13. He was worse than just throwing every pass incomplete. That's pretty rough. On that note, a Baker Mayfield highlight that people are aware of is him running around and planting an Oklahoma flag. I forget where. I think Texas. Oh, it was Oklahoma State?
Yeah, that's why it was so big.
That's like a major thing, is this video of Baker Mayfield running around like a crazy person. He's in college and planting the Oklahoma flag against Oklahoma State. And so the only thing I saw from last night's game was after Nick Bosa made a tackle, I think a sack, he ran around and pretended like he was waving a flag and pretended to plant it in the ground.
Nick Bosa was on that OSU team.
Oh, okay. So Ohio State.
Yes.
Okay. I was like, Oklahoma State.
The Ohio State.
Yeah. So I just think that's hysterical.
So he was on that team when that happened, and that's why he did it.
I just love that Nick Bosa was like, eat this, Baker. That's great.
And wasn't that his first? I want to say that was like his first game back.
Bosa?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Either that or it was his first game doing something important.
I don't know. He's a freak, and he's great.
I mean,
so.
yeah. I saw a thing where it includes them, so I'm going to go over it. It was what brothers would you pick, or like what team of brothers would you choose to, would you want in a full-on death, like to-death battle? It was like the Watts, the Bozas, and the Grunks. And they also threw in the Jonas Brothers. And for me, thinking
no one's going to take.
I picked the Jonas Brothers.
But what's the other one's name?
Nick, Kevin, and Joe.
Yeah, no one's taking Kevin in that fight, right? You're only picking two of the brothers, so you're leaving Kevin out, and you're going with Nick and Joe. Bob, you know what we're talking about?
Nope.
But I was really like, at first I was like, oh, you have to take the Watts, because just having JJ alone is a win. But all of the Gronkowskis are massive. Like, they are all massive. Rob is ginormous. Okay, but Chris is also huge, and because he was like a fullback. And there's two more of them and a dad that are all just massive individuals. But I think I rank JJ Watt the highest.
Yeah, I would definitely go with the Watts if I were to pick seriously.
I'm doing that. All right, last football thing that we're going to go over, I think, right? And I don't know how much more you had. Panthers, Jaguars, just because, we got to keep it close to your heart.
Yeah, so what I like to call this right now is called the Minshew Minute. And I have a stat that I found today. And the only players in NFL history to throw at least 12,000 passing... Nope. 1,200 passing yards. 12,000 would be intense.
Yeah.
1,200 passing yards and 9 touchdowns with 1 or fewer interceptions through 5 games are Patrick Mahomes and Gardner Minshew.
Well, there you go.
Hey.
Bob called that without even knowing.
Yeah, I was like, wait a second. So yeah,
we're just gonna leave out the fact that Minshew had 3 fumbles.
He still threw. I thought it was 2.
3. He lost.
He
3
still
fumbles.
threw at least 3 touchdowns.
He still had a great game.
And I'm pretty sure he stopped with, or I'm pretty sure he finished with 375.
And
yards.
they had another chance to win. Like, he had the ball driving with a chance to win. That's when the last fumble happened. But we were sitting at the house watching the game, waiting for incredible magic to
Minshew
occur
magic
because
to
you're
happen.
just expecting it. And unfortunately, this week it fell short.
Oh.
But the other highlight from that game was Christian McCaffrey just running through everybody.
Christian
all the time.
McCaffrey is arguably the best running back in the league right now.
I wouldn't even argue that as
Because
much as I love Todd Gurley.
I saw a stat where he has more scrimmage yards than Todd Gurley and Zeke combined.
They posted that on like SportsCenter, like a SportsCenter fact. And then Todd Gurley retweeted it and was like, leave us out of this. Let that man be a beast on his own.
Yeah. And then he's
So
like,
that was pretty
all
cool.
respect,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah. So that was great. that concludes the football segment of the morning. Real quick, baseball things.
I haven't watched baseball since the Angels were eliminated.
Okay, well, so I'll carry the load this segment. I am not, like we talked about last episode, I'm not a Dodger fan, but I am kind of a Nationals fan. They're my second team that I root for because I've listened to a Washington podcast in the past, and so I just know way more about Washington sports than I should. But I love Max Scherzer. I almost bought a Scherzer jersey this morning just because I love him so much.
It's kind of fun to say, Scherzer jersey.
Is it two colors like his eyes?
I wish. I mean, you could probably make that happen. So I was going to bring that up. In case, for those of you who don't know, Max Scherzer has heterochromia iridium. Did I memorize that? No, I did not. It's written right here. I had to look it up, but I knew. It's when both of your eyes are different colors.
If there was a disease that I would ask for, it would be this one.
Heterochromia iridium.
I also don't know if it's a disease. I think it's more of a birth defect question mark because it's not a defect.
Disease and defect are both. It's an anomaly.
It's
I'd
not
go
a
anomaly. That's
negative
a neutral
thing.
word.
It's just
if you call it a disease or a defect.
I wouldn't mind two different colored eyes.
So in a lot of people, it's not like super apparent. Like if it's brown and green or like those are kind of close. But his are like distinctly brown and distinctly light blue. And if you look straight into his eyes, it creeps the heck out of you. And so
remember when he had the black eye?
Yeah, and he hit himself in the face earlier this season. And so he fouled he was practicing bunting in the batting cage, fouled it off into his face. So he has a brown eye, a blue eye, and a black eye. And then he pitched 2 days later.
Yeah,
I think it was 2 days later. So he's on the mound, staring hitters down with two different colored eyes and this massive black eye on his face. So he just looks terrifying. So he just always kind of has that look.
Kind of like one of those cats that has like multiple colors. I forgot what that's called. There's a name. Calico.
Sure. And so with Scherzer, when he's on the mound too, he's just super intense all the time. He just looks intense. He stomps around. He's pacing. Like he wants the ball back so he can fire it up there again. So like last night, I was super stoked to have him just go up there against the Dodgers hitters. Scherzer always gives up a first inning home run all the time. So Justin Turner, first inning home run last night. So it's like, oh, here we go again. And then Scherzer was lights out the rest of the game until the seventh inning. He loaded the bases, but then he got out of it. And the Nationals won. So we got Game 5 tomorrow night in L.A., and that's going to be Walker Buehler versus Steven Strasburg, and that's going to be really, really entertaining.
Go Dodgers. Go Dodgers. Go Dodgers.
The Twins got knocked out.
I'll allow it, Bob. Yeah. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, the Minnesota Twins, as impressive as they were this year, leading the league in home runs, I believe, they just can't win in the playoffs, and they definitely can't win against the Yankees. They have now lost 13 straight postseason games to the Yankees, which is like, you can't even try to lose 13 games in a row without accidentally winning one, and that happened again. So the Yankees sweep and move on.
The Astros looked very dominant until last night.
Yeah, they ran into a pretty good buzzsaw.
10 runs, I'm pretty sure?
I think it was 10-4 was the final. Tampa Bay had a couple big hits early. Kevin Kiermaier hit a home run, which he doesn't usually do. He's more of a defensive specialist, but I imagine Houston's just going to win by like 15 runs today. They're going to be like, all right, get out of here. We need to move on and get some rest.
They're going to get knocked out.
So Houston versus New York is going to be quite an entertaining series.
They're going to get knocked out. It's
League.
going to be Rays, New York.
I mean, we want that. We have friends who want that because our man G-Man Choi, formerly of the Angels, he hit a home run yesterday. That was exciting. Quick minute on hockey. Ducks are 2-0. Kings are 0-1.
I haven't watched hockey yet. I forgot hockey started, by the way.
Mr. Sports Equinox, you knew.
That's right. I did know when they started. Ha ha ha. We always start slow. I'm not really concerned. Plus, our expectations this season are bottom of the barrel. So, as long as Drew Doughty plays like Drew Doughty, I think we'll be fine. The game we lost was like 6-5, though.
I didn't see it.
Which that's not ideal. That's a lot of points.
So the Ducks 2-0 playing Detroit, who is also 2-0 tonight. So match of undefeated powerhouses.
Go Detroit.
Yeah, you would. Anyway, so that's our hockey minute. Last of the sports topics for this. I last night, perusing the interwebs on Twitter, there was a post that came up because Pat McAfee commented on it. Again, he gives us a lot of content, so shout out to Pat McAfee. Go listen to his podcast. There was a tweet sent out by a Penn State football player. His name's Antonio Shelton. He's a senior defensive tackle. And he tweeted out a picture of a letter. He said, "One of my teammates got this. Explain to me how this isn't racist." And I'm going to read the letter. Oh, that.
Good luck. That
up.
is very small.
Yeah, I got this. No, I don't got this. No, I got to find it on Twitter. Jake, talk about something interesting.
So
Putting him on the spot.
There are a lot of very interesting things.
Yes, there are.
I'm going to try and pull something up as fast as I can.
I think I'm going to win. Nope, I'm not going to win. This is happening faster.
100%.
This is really bad radio.
I 100% blame
okay.
him for this. I want you to know.
This is my fault. I thought I had this prepared.
Jay Gruden got fired.
And I found it. Oh, yeah, he did. I mean, he deserved it. Washington's terrible.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's necessarily his fault.
No, he's terrible.
No one wants to play for them.
I mean,
Miami Dolphins are still the worst team probably in history.
I mean, they play each other this week.
Somebody has to win.
Who is watching that? No, I hope they tie 0-0.
I'm only watching that game.
That happens. Okay, I found the letter.
We play on Monday.
Back on it. Penn State football. One of the players receives this letter, and the letterhead is all caps in blue, and it says, "We are Penn State proud," but proud is like a line below and shifted to the right with 7 exclamation points after it. So that's weird. Here's what the letter says. It says, "Dear Jonathan," so it's directed towards a Penn State player named Jonathan. "My wife and I are proud older graduates of Penn State. We follow all Penn State sports: football, wrestling, volleyball, gymnastics, basketball. We love it all. I played all the sports in my younger days, still played full court basketball into my 50s. Loved the competition, but never had the size or the talent to reach your level, though the desire was there. Though the athletes of today are certainly superior to those in my days, we miss the clean-cut young men and women from those days. Watching the Idaho game on TV, we couldn't help but notice your, well, awful hair. Surely there must be mirrors in your locker room. Don't you have parents or a girlfriend who've told you those shoulder-length dreadlocks look disgusting and are certainly not attractive? We congratulate you on your game against Pitt, but you need to remember you represent all Penn Staters, both current and those alumni from years past. We would welcome the reappearance of dress code for athletes. You will certainly be playing on Sunday in the future, but we have stopped watching the NFL due to the disgusting tattoos, awful hair, and immature antics in the end zone. Players should act as though they've been there before. Again, all caps in blue. For the glory, signed Dave Peterson."
Probably shouldn't have said his name. Oh, it's on the internet. It's fine.
It's on. Yeah, I only have it because this happened. So Pat McAfee's response is, "Nobody gives a single cut darn thing about what you think, Dave," and continues on from there. But I just love the phrase "cut darn." He doesn't actually say darn, but I don't know if we're allowing ourselves to say the other word. So we're just going to go with "cut darn." And instantly, so
cat darn also kind of sounds like cat dog.
Long little world of little cat dogs. Initial reactions to this fan alumni's letter.
That is bad.
It's not great.
That definitely borderlines, if not crosses, the line of racism.
I just think he's a goober.
Yeah, there was a lot of kickback on Twitter for that. Just like
If my wife would let me, I'd wear dreads, but
yeah,
she won't, so I won't.
the just narcissism you have to be able to say, no, you should look and appear like I want you to look and appear. You should look like I think is acceptable to look. Like,
that's not great.
If the team, everybody on the team, Penn State, the university itself put out a thing that says we support all of our players, like looking and dressing how they want, individualism, whatever. Like, yeah, there's a line between what's appropriate, but hair is not. If he wants to have pink spikes, no one's going to care about that. Like, whatever. It was just really frustrating to read that, and I loved that. McAfee was very quick to shut it down, and the rest of the internet was very quick to shut it down. And so, yeah, if you're a sports fan, don't be like Dave.
You should never also send in a letter to someone like that.
The rest of Pat McAfee's tweet was, I assume this letter is from a Caucasian, and I'd like the world to know that a very large majority of us other Caucasians absolutely hate that this man exists as well. Hate's a strong word, but I'm not going to disagree with that.
It's just that, like, let the man be the man he wants to be. He's not doing anything harmful on the field.
He's succeeding. I haven't watched any Penn State, so I don't know anything about it, but Dave went out of his way to talk about how good Jonathan is. So let him be.
Yeah, exactly.
What if he's Samson? What if he cut his hair and all of a sudden he's not secure on a football field anymore and then he's terrible?
And
is that what you want for your Penn State football team, Dave? You want your team to suffer because you want Jonathan to cut his hair?
Yeah. In a way, this is kind of like a bullying situation as well. Like, they're going out of their way to put this kid down because he has his hair.
Yeah.
Like, it's just wrong.
Give me a break, Dave. Well, moving on to other things. We have a guest, and we want to now focus on our guest. You've heard Bob's fandom about Kansas City, and you know that he's a Dodgers fan based on his little cheer earlier.
Go Dodgers.
We're going to let that slide. But Bob is also an avid surfer, and Jake and I are not. Jake is allergic of water, basically.
I just don't like water.
Yeah. Jake doesn't go out in the water, and I'm too big. I didn't start early enough, and my center of gravity is very high. So if I try to ride anything board related, that doesn't go well for me. And so I just like wading in the water. I don't do all that. So because Bob is a longtime surfer and expert, we're gonna bug him about his surfing escapades. And so I don't know, how did surfing become a thing for you? What age were you? How did that develop?
So growing up, I grew up in Long Beach, California, and when I was in junior high, I bought my first surfboard for $20, and it barely floated, and kind of gave up for a while. And then I was in high school. I gave it another attempt, but I had bad experiences with other surfers in Newport Beach. Just kind of got run out of the water. And so I gave up surfing and took up body surfing, started playing water polo, and was in good swimming condition. And the bigger the wave, the better. Spent a lot of time at Newport Wedge. For those of you who know about the wedge, it can break 10 to 15 feet in 1 foot of water. So it's a pretty terrifying wave, but we love the challenge. And then later on, I was a youth director in San Pedro, and a friend gave me a surfboard. So I took it up again. And then when we have three sons, 3 kids, when they began to learn how to surf, then it became a family event, and we moved to Hawaii for a couple years, and it was there that we really started surfing a lot, and my kids learned how to compete. In fact, my oldest son competed against John Florence, who is now one of the top surfers in the world.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I literally know 2 names in surfing, and that's one of them. And so to me, that goes, wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah. And Zach is my son, and he did not beat John. And we knew watching John, he was just way better than the rest of the field. We knew this kid's special. But anyway, so that's when we really started surfing a lot. I also learned how to teach surfing while we were there, because apparently when you move to Hawaii, all of a sudden you have a lot of friends that you didn't know were your friends that want to come stay with you. And so that happened. And they all want to learn how to surf, so I had to figure out how to teach people. So learned how to teach surfing, and so now that's one of my favorite things, is to teach kids especially. And we have used surfing as an outreach, gone to Dominican Republic several times, gone to Indonesia, and I've got lots of stories. but one story I wanted to tell, and I forgot about this story until today.
Yes.
I was at a coffee shop, and what's the other name for rock, paper, scissors?
Rochambeau.
Rochambeau.
Yeah.
So two of the baristas were doing the Rochambeau to decide who was gonna make the bagels. And as soon as they started doing that, that reminded me of an adventure I got to go on. A friend of mine, I'll get back to the Rochambeau.
Did the Rochambeau happen this morning?
It happened at the coffee shop, but it reminded me of another time that I saw that.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So a friend of mine is a fisherman. He took me and two of my sons on a boat, and along with two of his friends, and we went to surf off of San Clemente Island, which apparently you're not supposed to do that. So I can't.
Just adds to the adventure.
So, but every time, so my friend who is a dentist had two friends of his that were also dentists, identical twin brothers, and their names were James and John. No lie. And anytime there was a big decision who was gonna get the Zodiac boat ready, they would Rochambeau.
Nice.
And so that reminded me of this story. So we're out there, and for those of you who surf, if you've ever had this experience where you take a boat to your surf location, it's completely different because you're approaching the wave from the back of the wave. And so all you see is the swell, and you kind of have to guess where it's going to break. And so we're approaching where we think there's going to be a reef, but we don't really know until we get into the Zodiac and go through the kelp beds and actually see the wave coming. And so it's all kind of a matter of faith. I know one of the things you guys like to talk about is faith, but we park the boat, get in the Zodiac, Rochambeau, to figure out who's gonna to get it ready, and either James or John won. And these guys are big wave surfers, so they've got a big wave surfboard is called a gun, and it's significantly longer and it's shaped for big waves. And my sons had short boards, and I had a 9-foot long board. Not ideal for really big waves, but that's what we had. And so we go through the kelp bed, and we paddle our boards over to where we think it's going to start breaking. And we're waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting. And all of a sudden, this swell comes, and these waves, they're as big as houses, start coming. And because we came from the boat, not from the shore, we didn't know what the bottom of the ocean was like. Are there rocks? Is it sand? Is there reef? Is it safe? So we're just guessing, and we go to take off on these waves, and as you're about to drop in, you're just looking down the face of a 10-foot wall, and at the bottom of it, the water is boiling over, and that tells you there's probably a rock there. And so we'd start to paddle, and then we'd say, no, you go, and pull out. And this happened over and over until finally we get the courage and just, well, we've sailed all the way out here. I'm going for it. You drop into this massive wall of water, and the fastest wave I've ever been on, and terrifying but exhilarating at the same time. And then pull out right before you think where there's a rock, and then just yelling for everybody else is super excited. Stoked is the surf term. Super stoked for you. And I remember my youngest son catching a wave, and I'm terrified for him, but also just really excited. And he pulls out, and just a huge grin on his face, like, yeah. And so we make it out of there, and then James and John, it's fun to say that, they're catching wave after wave, getting in these huge barrels, and just the time of our life, and we're the only ones out there, and we're not supposed to be there, so this may or may not have happened. I can't, confirm or deny. We get back in the boat, and we're just exhausted but exhilarated at the same time, and as we're underway, you have to come back by Catalina Island on your way back, and we look out, and there is a pod of orcas, and which are killer whales, which is exciting until the thought occurred, we've been in the water where these guys are, and we're dressed up like seals.
Oh no.
So that was a little, but it was like National Geographic, just being out there, and it was awesome. But I've had a lot of opportunities to travel to crazy places and surf waves, and in almost every situation, it's because I said yes to following Jesus. That we wanted to work with kids that were at-risk kids in Dominican Republic, and I only went there because it was a group of believers that wanted to make a difference in these kids' lives, and same thing with Indonesia. I don't know. I could go on and on and on with lots of stories, but
that's my questions were going to be more like technical at that point, because you're talking about like the idea between a longboard versus a shortboard. I don't know why that's important. It feels like a shortboard you'd have more control. Why is a longboard more ideal for a bigger wave?
Well, usually a shortboard is a lot more fun with turns and maneuverability.
I would say that's like what they do tricks with, is like a short one.
Catching air, yeah. Longboard, there's a lot of different types of longboards. My longboard was just kind of an all-around fun board, but the gun is built. It's thicker. It's got a long, narrow nose that tends to not dig in on a large wave. You want to just make the drop, and then be able to have enough speed to stay in front of the wall of whitewater, and a gun will do that. But there's guys who, the best surfers in the world, they're surfing huge waves on shortboards, so they kind of can do it all.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
And what does it mean for a wave to be fast? Just like it literally is just crashing faster than other waves would?
Yeah, just the push, the speed of the water. If in the case of San Clemente Island, especially in the case of the Hawaiian Islands, you've got the swell that's moving across the face of the ocean. In deep water, there's nothing slowing it down. Mm-hmm. So then when all of a sudden it meets a reef or sand, it's got a lot more power, a lot more speed. And in Hawaii especially, the wind conditions are more ideal. The wind is offshore usually. And so that means the wind is hitting the face of the wave, so that it holds the face up longer, so that when the wave does break, that's when it creates the tube, the barrel. For surfers, that's the ultimate, is if you can get inside of a barrel. And I have, and it's if you can make it, it's I can't even describe what it feels like. You're inside this tube of water. So it's going over your head. You can look up and see the water going over, and in front of you, it's like a tunnel. And in front of you, you can see the sun. And you if you make it out, then the wave crashes down behind you and you're in front of it and you're still going. But there's a point where you have to decide if this is going to be worth it, because usually what happens if it's a wall in front of you and it's about to pitch over, and so you duck down and you're either going to make it in the barrel or it's going to hit you in the head and you're going to wipe out. And it could be disastrous.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's how I feel playing a Mario Kart 64 on Toad's Turnpike when you're making a turn and the big rig is right there and you got to fit in between the big rig and the rail, because if you hit the rail you're going to bounce back into the big rig and then you're going to blow up and then you lose your lead. That's literally all I was thinking about while you were
I can't
describing a
believe
barrel,
that is
fitting,
what he got
fitting
from
into
this.
that small space and just how tense that moment is, because you could lose if you're in the big rig.
that's awesome.
I can't believe
That's
what
where
he
my
got
mind
from this.
goes.
Except that if you get taken out, you're gonna get raked across a razor sharp reef. And
Yeah.
Significantly
that-
worse.
That's why I agree. This is my mind is skewed that way. I don't do that.
yeah.
You've brought up Hawaii a few times.
Yeah.
I have a few questions about that. How long did you spend in Hawaii, and like what years kind of did you do that?
What years? It was around 2000. No, it was later than that. Right around there, 2 years.
Okay.
And I was on staff at a church doing music primarily, but that church of 200 people was starting other churches.
Mm-hmm.
One Chinese-speaking church, one Palauan-speaking church, and then one English-speaking church on the other side of the island. And it was one adventure after another. We called it the Tropical Barrio. It's a pretty rough neighborhood. There's a lot of really rough neighborhoods. A lot of people don't know this about Hawaii, but once you get out of the touristy areas, it can be pretty rough.
They've got their fair shares of ghettos.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? What do you mean rough? Like if you could describe a Hawaiian.
So
Rio.
yeah,
Rough. Like if you look at Rio, like how they're like buildings
Wait,
on top of each other.
Rio
and,
what?
Like Rio de Janeiro.
Okay, how many times have I been to Brazil?
You have a phone and can look at pictures.
I got
So
Bob here to explain it to me.
So in Hawaii on Oahu, there's been a lot of methamphetamine abuse, ice, and
Yeah,
it's
ice.
really destroyed a lot of families, a lot of culture, and it's very addictive. And so in our neighborhood, we lived right on the border of a park and a natural spring.
Was this an intentional location that you sought out and went, or you just happened to?
I just happened to be there.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. We lived on the same property as a church, and that's where it is. Right across the street from Liliha Bakery, world famous Liliha Bakery. If you ever go to Liliha Bakery.
On Oahu.
I'm pretty
On
sure I've
Oahu.
heard of that.
Yeah, it's shown up even on Hawaii 5-0.
Mm.
So
you know you made it.
yeah. So across, right next to the park, there was a drug house, and it was really a blight on the neighborhood. And so while we were there, we did a lot of outreach in that park. The local church really took ownership of the neighborhood, did a lot of cleanup. We would do movies in the park, things to reach out to the neighborhood. We did a Easter egg hunt where we anticipated 100 kids and 200 showed up.
Oh wow.
We ran out of Easter eggs,
That's
and
okay.
you don't want to do
You
that.
don't want
we,
to.
we had some locals give us some serious stink eye, and so the next year we got plenty eggs. But
Never want Hawaiian stink eye.
no.
That's something I was
Yeah.
going to bring up.
But so we had a great time.
So you only lived there for 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to bring up, because my brother lives out there, and he's known as Big Wave Dave, and he is pretty well known on like the North Shore kind of area as a surfboard glasser. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure. So he glasses the surfboards and makes them so like that. So I was wondering if you ever ran into him, but if it was
I
only
never
for 2
ran
years.
into Big Wave Dave.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he lives out there and he tells me stories about stuff like that all the time. Another question I was going to ask is, you were surfing out there still, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever get run out and stuff like that because you aren't Hawaiian.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Sure.
he had to make a name for himself before he was allowed to surf at the spot that he wanted to surf.
Talking about
pretty much.
Dave.
Yes,
Yeah.
because he's very white. He has red hair. Like
Yeah.
he does not look the part of a Hawaiian, but he's been living there for I think like 13 years now.
The local term is haole. Literally means ha'ole, which means without breath. It's a derogatory term.
Mhm.
Let's just say.
Go with that. Explain the idea of getting run out.
Run out. So there's places where you go to paddle out and locals will just yell at you. I won't say here what they say, but it's very clear you are not welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take off on a wave, they will just take off right in front of you, and it's just like you're not even there. And if you get upset about it, then all of a sudden you've got a confrontation not only with one person but with a group of locals.
You don't want to do that. They are big people.
Yes. So good story. We surfed a lot right there in Waikiki because on a good summer swell, it's a world-class wave.
I like Waikiki.
Some people say it's the birthplace of surfing.
Mm-hmm.
It used to just be the Royal Hawaiians would surf there, and then people like Duke Kahanamoku opened it up for others to surf. But there was this one guy out there, and I'll go ahead and name him because we became friends. His name was Ka'eo. And he and a couple of his friends would shout at tourists to, I won't say exactly what he said, but
Man, Hawaii sounds rough.
yeah,
It's a lot of
it can be, and
non-repeating language.
and so intimidating as heck. So a lot of times when you paddle into a wave, if somebody else is out there going for the same wave, you ask, "Hey, which way you going, brah? Which way you going?" And if they say right, then you go left. And so I said to KL, "Which way you going?" And he says, "Both ways, brah." So okay,
He must be pretty talented.
he is. And so this went on for a long time. We were there for 2 or 3 months, and I would just avoid him until and he saw though that we treated people with respect, and my sons were respectful to locals, and we kind of just waited and took our turn, you know. And then one day we were out, and the waves were good, and Ka'eo was out there, and a wave was coming, and I just assume he's gonna go both ways. And he looks at me, he says, "Go, brah, go, paddle." And I'm like, okay. I wasn't even gonna take it, but and then from then on, he and I became friends, and I got to know him and his life, and when we moved back to California, we were down at Dana Point one day, and Doheny State Beach is a fun spot. A lot of people learn how to surf there, and I look out, and there's Ka'eo in my neighborhood.
Wow.
And so I didn't say anything. I just paddled up and I said, "Hey, bro, you cannot surf here." And he looked at me and Bob, and he laughed. And it was great fun. He and his friends got a gig teaching surf lessons out here. And so it was fun. So a lot of stories like that.
Mm-hmm.
But just like any sport anywhere, if you treat people with respect and you don't react with anger when anger comes, good things happen. And so that's what we experienced.
Yeah, I got a few more questions about your time in Hawaii. One, who was your favorite shrimp truck? Because I know how important that
We're
is.
deep in the woods now.
You know, we didn't have a shrimp truck experience.
Oh man, you're missing out. They have hundreds of trucks that are just like shrimp and fresh shrimp, and oh man, now it's now more on the North Shore where they have like a whole bunch. And
I was going to say it sounds like more Haleiwa.
Haleiwa. I was going to
Shore.
bring up too. Haleiwa is probably my favorite place I've ever been to.
Yeah.
I need to go to Hawaii more. I have no idea what's going on.
Oh, it's amazing.
Haleiwa is an incredible wave.
That's where my brother works out of Haleiwa at a shark boat.
Okay.
And so that's where he is right now. Or, well, he doesn't live there. He lives on the east side. I forgot the name of the place he lives at. And his wife works at Turtle Bay. So like they're all around. I was also going to ask, have you ever surfed Pipeline, and would you ever consider it?
I have not, and no, I would not. For a couple reasons. Mostly, you can't just decide on it. Oh, it's Saturday and it's good at Pipeline. I'm gonna paddle out and catch a wave, because there's guys that won't let you catch a wave. You got to earn your way in, especially when it's good. There's guys that have been surfing there for years, and there's only so many waves, and so they're not going to just let.
Yeah.
I don't care how good you are. They're not going to let you just paddle in and surf. And so there's plenty of other places that are close to Pipeline that you can surf when it's really good.
It's a iconic place. Like I even just went there and just watching the waves crash there, and you're just like, this is insane.
Yeah.
And like the waves there are like some of the best I've ever seen. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And just everything about like Hawaiian surf, that is pretty much like where you that's where you imagine is Pipeline. And just, oh man.
Yep.
Have you exhausted your Hawaii question?
No. I mean, yes, I don't have any more right now.
All right, we're gonna backtrack a little. So you mentioned playing water polo.
Yes.
That was during your high school days.
Yes.
So we're gonna go back to the high school days.
Okay.
Because I've heard your testimony and it's amazing, and I want the people to know. So where did you go to high school, and where were you at in life, and how did you?
Went to Milliken. Go
things?
Rams. My brother and sister went to Milliken. My dad went to Pauley. Mom went to Wilson. So we're a Long Beach family.
LBUSD.
Woohoo! So I knew how to swim, and thought I was just signing up for swim class, and it turned out to be the swim team. And I fought against the idea of having to wear a Speedo.
That's a rough transition to make. Man.
Yes. Don't mock another man till you swim a mile in his Speedo. No.
Not something I plan on doing.
So, I was definitely not a believer, not a follower of Jesus. And actually, the first time I went to Hawaii was with my water polo team. And we went out for a week on Oahu tournaments. We lost every game. We didn't take our starting. Me and one other guy were the only seniors that went. The rest were younger, and we were just there to party and goof off. And I got in a fight with local Hawaiians over pot, and that's all I want to say about that story. But it was a terrible experience, and I came home really disillusioned because I had all these thoughts that Hawaii was going to be paradise, and it was a rough week. So that happened, and several things. I was 17. Several things just happened all in a row that really kind of took the rug out from underneath me. And so on my 18th birthday, two friends, they were two of our best players. One was all CIF, one was all American. And they something was different about these two guys. And I'd watched them over a 3-year period. And we would be going to party and literally show up at this one guy's house and try and drag him out of bed to go with us. And he wouldn't go. And we just didn't get it because he was a fun guy. That's why we wanted him with us. But something was different about these guys. And so So one day on a Friday, they said, "Hey, we're going to a concert tomorrow night. It's a really great band. Do you wanna go?" And I'm like, "Sure, I like hanging out with you guys." And they said, "Okay, good, you're driving." I said, "Okay." So we drive all the way out to Costa Mesa, and that's all they told me. It was a good band, good music. You're gonna like it. And while we're driving out there, my friend says to me, he starts asking me about my relationship with Jesus. And I'm like, "Why do you even want to talk about this? We're going to a concert." But I respected him, and I had grown up in the church, but I really had avoided God, avoided making any kind of commitment to following Jesus. And so I just kind of hem and hawed, yeah, I go to church and stuff. And so we pull up to where the concert is going to be, and it's at this big church. And I'm like, I don't get it. What? Because my experience up to then was good music and church don't go hand in hand. And but then I began to notice everybody in the crowd in line, they just really had a good time with each other. They're playing checkers and just laughing and goofing off. And I'd never experienced that at church, where people wanted to be there and were having fun.
What a novel idea to enjoy each other's company.
Exactly. And so I'm like, wow, this is different. And so we go in, and this band starts playing, and they were incredible. And the music was good. And then this pastor stands up, and his hair was longer than mine, and my hair was pretty long. He starts talking about Jesus in a way that I had not experienced. That just the love of God and the presence of God was, I don't know how to describe it other than you could just feel his presence. It was thick.
And you hadn't had that experience before in any way, shape,
No, I had not. And so they gave an opportunity at the end. If anybody wants to be a follower of Jesus, come on forward. We want to pray with you, and we're gonna give you a Bible and help you get started. And out of 2,000 people there, I was the first one up. I just ran to the front. It was so easy to give my life to the Lord for a couple reasons. One was I had kind of exhausted my other options. Friends that I thought were friends weren't, and pot had let me down, and family was really tumultuous, and so to be around these people who genuinely cared about each other, and then to be in the presence of God, it was just there were no barriers for me at that point. And so that's when I started following Jesus. And there's been time, I was going to say I've never looked back, but there have been times when I've looked back and I've wandered, but the Lord is faithful, and he just keeps bringing me back and bringing me back. And that's what I want to do now, is serve and surf. Those two things.
So what's been like, knowing what your life was like before and knowing what it's been like since? Why do you believe in God? Like, what is it about God for you that has completely changed your life, that is so obvious that this is truth? Like, how do you, Bob, know that God is real and active in your life?
Well, I don't always feel his presence. There's plenty of times when I do, and I need times when I actually feel his presence. When I talk to him, I have a morning thing that I do. I get up early as I can and enjoy hot coffee, and I've got scripture that I read and a journal. And I'll write out my prayers, and then something I've found helpful lately is I'll write out my prayer to the Lord, and then I'll wait, and I'll get a sense if there's something that he wants to say back to me, and I'll write that down. And so it's an interaction. It's a give and take, my prayer time with the Lord. And sometimes he speaks to me more clearly in the Scripture, and sometimes it's in the midst of prayer. I feel like he's speaking to me. Oftentimes it's with other believers. We get together and to talk to the Lord and just talk to each other, and it's in those times where he really speaks to me. One of the things we've been doing recently is spend about 45 minutes praying for the nations on a Sunday morning. Me and Pete and whoever else wants to come to Bob's office Sunday mornings, 9 o'clock. Little promotional.
There's a really cool map sitting on the wall behind me that, talk about that real quick.
Yeah, and so what we're doing is we're praying for, we've got a lot of friends all over the world that are wanting to live out their faith in some pretty difficult places. And so we spend time praying for them, and we ask the Lord, hey, would you direct our thoughts and how to pray? And then we find ourselves all over the world, and then back in Long Beach, praying for people that we hadn't thought of at all. And I feel like the Lord brings those people to mind because we've asked him to. So those are some of the ways that I've been experiencing God. And
I have a question about
Hawaii?
No.
Back to Hawaii?
You go on mission trips. How you've gone on many mission trips, correct?
Many, yes.
Where are some of the locations that you've been to that are very noteworthy to you?
So Dominican Republic several times, on the South Shore and the North Shore. Haiti, 2 or 3 times to Haiti. To Indonesia was the longest. We spent 3 weeks in Indonesia. One week of that was actually on a boat. And we would go from island to island. And each of us had an extra suitcase. There were 40 of us. Went with a group that's based out of Hawaii. And they've gone to Indonesia probably 20 years. Same places, same shop owners. They just go back to the same people year after year, just sharing the love of Jesus. Lot of time in Mexico, Mexicali Valley. A lot of youth groups we've taken over spring break. So those are the places I'm remembering.
On the overseas ones, is that through certain organizations, or is that like how are those organized, set up?
Yeah. So to the Dominican Republic, and I've gone to Mexico with these folks. International Youth Initiative. Shout out to Keith King. He's a local pastor here in Long Beach, but also he runs International Youth Initiative. And we've done surf camps together with Keith. Indonesia was with Surfing the Nations, and they're based out of Wahiwa, Oahu, Hawaii. Great group. But they have 5 or 6 countries at least that they go to throughout the year. And highly recommend them, especially for surfing. IYI, International Youth Initiative, does a lot of outreach with baseball in the Dominican Republic. In the Dominican, baseball is king. You go to other Latin American countries, and soccer is everywhere. In the Dominican, baseball is everywhere. We're driving to a beach location, and we came around this corner right in the middle of this neighborhood, and these kids were playing baseball. Their bat was a 2x4, and the ball was a doll's head. So whatever it took for them to play baseball. So
Stickball, man.
yeah. So they've had a lot of success. Just a lot of good character building camps, sports camps. Yeah, so that's who I've gone with. And then right here at home, we do a lot of surf lessons for families that are connected with our school, especially, but just friends find out about it and want to learn. So we're always available. Just hit me up. We'll go surf.
Another shout out to our amazing school. If you have a preschool or elementary student that needs
Santos
a
Grace.
great place to be,
That's right.
we got some amazing people here.
Yep.
So you've also, in your lifetime, spent some time as a youth pastor.
Yes.
And Jake and I are both in that field at the moment. What was that experience like? What was it like getting into it? As you reflect on it, what were the great moments? What were some of the not so great moments?
I got into it on accident. I was not
perfect.
I was not planning on being a youth director at all. Who am I to lead a Bible study but I went to volunteer at a church in rural Arizona, the White Mountains of Arizona. I was going to help out with their building project. And next thing I knew, I was given a list of kids to call and invite to a Bible study, and I was terrified to cold call people.
This is before like texting was a really big. You had to actually make a phone call.
I had to
talk
actually
to people.
talk to somebody on the other end. So that was terrifying. And then I told the pastor, okay, I called these kids. 12 of them said they're coming. Who's teaching the Bible study? And he looked at me and he said, "You are."
Surprise.
And so my first Bible study was on Philippians chapter 2. I had like 4 pages of notes. And we're all sitting in a circle in the church basement, and I'm reading my notes, and I would look up once in a while, and nobody had left. So I got to the end, and I looked at the pastor, and I said, "Okay, can you take it from here?" And he rolled his eyes, and that was my first experience at being a youth director. But what happened, I really started to care about these kids, and I was only 19 or maybe 20 myself. Been a Christian for 2 years, but I was hungry to know the Lord, to know His Word. And that was my first experience of learning how to care about other people. And I just grew to love them and love being around youth culture and wanted to learn more. So when I was there for a year, not quite a year, and then I came back and decided to go to Bible school so that I could
actually know what you were talking about.
Exactly. And so that's what I did, and that opened the door to another church in Norwalk that was looking for a youth director, and was a youth director in Norwalk for 4 or 5 years, and then San Pedro for a lot of years, and then got more into church planting. But I've come back just over and over back into youth ministry in some form or another. I love helping you guys out, hanging out with kids, helping out with camp. And
why do you think that desire is in you? Like, what is so important about youth ministry that you feel called to that so frequently?
It's just fun. It's fun to be around people that, youth especially, fun is a high priority, and I think it's something that gets lost on adults a lot of times, is forget how to have fun. Start to take life, take ourselves too seriously, and so I feel like being around youth brings that out in me too. A reminder to have fun.
I definitely do not feel 33 most days.
Yeah.
It could be a good or bad thing.
I feel 33 sometimes.
I definitely don't feel 33.
A question that always, for me, because I love talking about the people that have really influenced me, who are a couple people who have had a major influence on you in your life, whether they're believers and influencing your faith or just life in general?
The first was a youth sponsor when I was growing up. I was in junior high, and I would go to camp because there was girls at camp, this
purpling.
This sponsor, his name was Pete. I don't remember his last name. I remember that he worked at a sporting goods store, and I didn't really connect or like the youth director at the church I was at. I felt like it was all about the rules. But Pete, I really liked. And we were at a youth camp, and I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it's a good story. So I was up in Big Bear, and me and my friend, instead of going to the meetings, we were out skateboarding. We were bombing a hill in Big Bear. And we look up, and Pete comes walking out of the woods, and we're like, oh, no, we're busted. And he says, give me the skateboard. Handed him a skateboard, and he jumps on it, and he bombs the hill. And we looked at each other like, oh, wow. And so then he came back up to us, and he said, I know you guys want to have fun, but I really need you to go to the meeting. We're like, yeah, whatever you want, Pete. We'll do it.
Instant power and authority.
And so even though I was not yet a believer, he had a big impact on my life, that this is what life could be like. I could be like Pete. And then when I did become a believer, the pastor that I mentioned earlier that made me a youth director when I didn't want to be a youth director, Joe Johnson, he's like a father to me, but he's not old enough to be my dad. Shout out to you, Joe.
Way to go, Joe.
But he is still a huge influence in my life. That was a lot of years ago, but we still have dinner together about once a month. And he, a lot of people. I could have the bracelet WWJD, but what would Joe do? Because Joe would do what Jesus would do. So, and does. So for sure, when I get asked that question, I always come back to Pastor Joe.
I love hearing people's stories like that, like the people that affect our lives the most. Even if it's just like singular moments, to be able to look back at singular moments and go, man, that shaped me. Or if it's somebody that you've had a relationship with for years and years and years, like having people in our lives who are influencing us that we can remember, that we can tell stories about, that we can get to share with other people. Like, oh, it's incredible. I love it. My one other topic that I thought about as we were sitting here is Jake and I are not married. We do not have significant others, and we also do not have children. And you have both of those things, Bob. So just in my wonderings, what is the coolest thing about being a husband, and what is the coolest thing about being a father?
Coolest thing about being a husband is I get to live with my best friend, commit. I remember the feeling I had at our wedding, just realizing that this person, I don't even know how to describe it. I guess the security is not a good enough word, but just deep down knowing this person is promising to spend their life with me. And the weight of that, but the freedom of that, you can't, where else are you going to find that? Yeah. That this person is committed to me no matter what for the rest of my life. And we love to have fun together.
How long have you guys been married?
35 years? No. We were married in 1986. 33 years. Sorry, Tara. 33 years. We have 3 sons. oldest is 30 today. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Zach. Yeah, all three of my sons, they're completely different personalities, but they're super interesting guys, hard workers, compassionate. And we've been through a lot together, haven't we, guys? And through all the painful times, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Just the joy that they bring. And I'm going to get choked up if I keep talking about them, so I'm not. Yeah, just love them to pieces, though. They all live close by. They all surf. Ben is teaching me how to fish, so they're all watermen. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yep.
I love that.
I'm sorry, I was put on the spot.
Do you have anything else that you would like to ask? I feel like I've asked.
Well,
a lot
I
of
was just
questions.
gonna ask him about if he had any stories that he would like to share about his mission trips or anything like that, like of Indonesia.
A near-death experience.
There we go.
Yeah.
The time
Or it felt like that at the
the
time.
time you did not die.
Yeah. So we were on a boat, and we were going from island to island. These are small islands off of near Bali, and our what we would normally do is we had suitcases filled with clothes, hygiene kits, toys, and some of the suitcases had like gospel tracts, but they were comic book form because illiteracy was high in some of the places we were going. So we would come ashore and we would look for the elder of the village and we would ask permission. Is it okay for us to give these things away? It was in the middle of Ramadan, very Muslim island. I didn't know this, but in Ramadan, Muslims will fast in the day and eat in the evening. Well, some who are extreme will not even swallow their own saliva. So we come ashore and we see these women and they're spitting a lot. And we're thinking, is that a sign of disrespect towards us? No, it was just that they were that religious. So we went to find the elder of the village, and there's 20 of us. Actually, there's 40 total, but
Oh, no.
two groups of 20, and the other boat of 20 was at a different island. But so there's 20 of us, and it's like a parade. And so by the time we get to the elder of the village, we've got 100 kids following us, and it's pretty obvious we have arrived. And so we go to the elder of the village. Our group is playing with the kids, and I look up and I see these three men, and they are giving us the stink eye. They've got their arms crossed, and they are looking at us. And so I walked up and introduced myself, and they're asking what we're doing there, and we're trying to say, well, we've got some gifts for you. And it turns out 2 are plainclothes police officers, and 1 is the imam of the mosque. And he says to me, looks at me, and he says, "Are you Christians?" And I said, "Yes, but we have Abraham in common and even the prophet Jesus." And he's just shaking his head. No, he's not going for it. And he says, "If you're tourists, you can stay on our island. If you're Christians, you need to leave now." And so I turned to our group, said, "Okay, you guys, we're wrapping up. We need to leave right now."
Man.
"Why?" "No, now." And so while that's going on, the director of the team walks up to the one man in charge, and he shakes his hand, and he says, "I understand." He says, "If you want, we can leave these clothes with you, and we'll leave." And they kind of huddle up, and after a short time, they they come back and they say, no, leave now. And so the director, he shakes the man's hand and he says, I understand. I'll see you next year. And I'm thinking, not going to see me next year.
They clearly don't want us.
But that was their approach to ministry. Was we just want to be available. We're not going to push any agenda. Discouraging though, because we had come a long way.
Yeah.
The very next day, so we got back on our boat. We're underway for a day and a night. The very next day, we go to another island. We come ashore, and the director of the village, his name is Ismail. He knows 2 words in English. We come to his little hut, 4 sticks and a roof and sort of walls. And he says, come, sit. And he was just so open to us being there. And we offered him, we had a Bible in his language, and he needed reader glasses to read. So we handed him the Bible, handed him glasses, and he gets this big grin on his face. And he's so appreciative. And so if it's okay for him, it's okay for his whole village. And so these are neighbor islands, same time. One day later, one is completely closed to us being there, and the other was welcoming us into his own home. And
That's crazy.
I came away from that just changed, just realizing, God is in control and his timing. And whether it's a whole village or a nation or a person, you can't rush. If they're not ready, they're not ready. But when they are, somebody needs to be there to give them good news. So that's us. We get to go.
It's a pretty powerful
Yeah.
message for us to think about. Well, as you can all tell, Bob has stories for days. So if you want to hear more, find Bob, contact him, take him out to lunch or something. He likes having meals with people. Where should they take you, Bob?
And I'd like to listen to your stories as much as I tell my stories. Holy Moly is the place of preference.
It is good. I do enjoy a good holy moly experience. Well, thanks for being with us, Bob.
Thanks for having me.
A pleasure.
It was incredible and fun, and hopefully people were able to learn something.
Hopefully a lot. So, again, we're looking for sponsors. If you want to send some money our way, we'll take it. Just get in contact with us. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at From Bob's Office, FROMBOBSOFFICE. And now you know Bob, so it's a personal connection now. There's not just some floating who's Bob.
Mm-hmm.
It's
not the tomato.
No, this is Bob. This is Bob. So yeah, find us. We'll get it up on a podcast thing here somewhere or on YouTube. The last one was on YouTube. Find that on YouTube, From Bob's Office. It's like the first thing that pops up.
I mean, if they found this one, they probably found the other one.
Yeah. Stay in touch. We got that Gmail account too. You want to send an email or comment on stuff, send some messages, let us know if there's topics you want us to cover or if you want to be a guest. Our guest list is wide and expansive. So today's Tuesday. I think the next recording happens sometime next week. We'll keep you posted on social media. But thanks for tuning in. I'm Jacob.
And I'm Jake.
Adios and aloha.